The first technology I wanted to talk about today are stingrays. Now, they also go by some different names. That's a brand name. A more modern version of it's called the Hailstorm. But essentially what they are is fake cell phone towers. And the way that they operate really is kind of like the children's game of Marco Polo. When a stingray shouts out Marco, your cell phone has no choice but to shout out Polo. And in shouting out Polo, it does a couple of things to what it thinks is a legitimate cell phone tower it's trying to connect up to. One, it tells the cell phone tower, in this case the stingray, who you are and where you are. Another thing it does is it enables the stingray device to intercept written content being generated by your phone while it's connected. So that could mean text messages or emails. There is also the capability, although we don't know in this case whether this is actually being used right now, of using this connection to implant spyware on your phone. And so that would enable whoever is tracking you using the stingray to continue to track you or potentially to continue to intercept your messages once you have moved out of the location of the stingray device. So obviously you can see how the use of a stingray has pretty strong privacy and free speech implications. Another thing to bear in mind with stingrays is they are a consummate mass surveillance device. They cannot be targeted. So if the police are using a stingray because they want to try to identify the location of a particular phone, they cannot train the stingray on a particular phone. What a stingray does is it sweeps up every cell phone within its radius. That can be dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of cell phones, depending on where it's being used. Now, the problem with this, it's probably the easiest to illustrate using an example of, let's say, a Black Lives Matter leader. And I choose Black Lives Matter very consciously because I think they are probably the largest, most inappropriately surveilled group in the country, certainly in the last 5 years. So imagine you have a police force who is interested in identifying the location of a Black Lives Matter leader. They have that person's cell phone, and so they activate a stingray, and they identify that that person is within the location, but they also, of course, identify every other person that's within that location. If they do that on that leader, say, a dozen times, that gives them the ability to figure out not only where that leader has been, but everyone else who's coming up regularly in the same area as that person. And now you have generated a list of contacts and associates and perhaps other leaders of the movement. So it's in that sort of way that the mass surveillance capabilities of the stingray can be also problematic for the right of association.